the way?
Mine's laying down.
Okay. Fair enough.
No,
Fair enough.
That's why we're doing this thing, because we think there's so many things to talk about, and they're going to be mostly football related. It's probably the way we're going to do this. If something major breaks on the night we're doing the show, we will certainly throw that into it as well. But he's been around social media today, and you've been following college football. There's a little bit going on today, especially down in the Southeastern Conference, and we'll get into all that for you coming up as well, too. But the big news as we roll the program out for you tonight centers on the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the state of Ohio and name, image, and likeness. If you're not familiar with what that is, it allows student athletes the opportunity to profit off of their name, off of their image, off of their likeness, be it live ads for a car dealer or a restaurant or something along those lines. Anything, they can use their name to help that outlet make money. They get paid for it. They can help do that. I'm sure you've already seen a lot of the ads already. Ohio State players have been in car dealership ads. They've been in other ads as well, too, and it is certainly turning the world around in college athletics. Well, 9 states already have that in effect for high school athletes, and the state of Ohio put it up to vote, the OHSAA, for their member schools, whether or not it should start in the state of Ohio. Greg, before we dive a little deeper into this, you played high school football in Ohio. You know what this is all about.
Right.
You're a coach in high school football
Right.
coming up this season.
Right.
What's your opinion on name, image, and likeness?
Well, it's I go both ways on it. I'm warming up to the idea, and I think ultimately I will be in favor of it. I tend to look at it a little bit from an old school standpoint, of amateur status, and as amateur status, you're not in a position to get paid. But for years, I've always questioned that because we do live in a capitalistic society, as far as I know. We still do, mostly. So I like it that the college athletes can now be compensated, and I think eventually that's going to continue and grow in more states at the high school level. I have kids. I have a son that's going to be a 9th grader, and I look at, okay, what do his next 4 years look like? And would I be okay as a parent if that was the case? And I think the answer is yes, because high schoolers can go get a job. They can go to work, so why not be compensated if they're good in an area of athletics? Now, there's got to be rules to go along with that, obviously.
Right, and the OHSA, before we go any further, did lay down some pretty strenuous guidelines as to what student athletes could and could not do if this were to pass.
Yeah, so I know a few people that I talk to that are doing NIL deals with collegiate athletes, and I like what I'm hearing because these are people that I feel are very conscientious about how they're doing it. It allows the athlete the opportunity to obviously meet some people, learn about somebody else's business, and do something on behalf of the business to earn money. And in both of these cases, they're also doing some coaching from a financial literacy standpoint, and I think that's awesome. So there's a lot of positives to how this can operate, and I think if it's done correctly, you can teach a young person not only about capitalism, you can make some money, but teach them about financial literacy, which I don't think is taught enough in schools. So I think there's a great opportunity here from that standpoint.
Okay, let me take it the other way then, because I've already seen the argument. I'm sure you've seen it as well too. It's fluent across social media right now. The one argument against it that I have heard is, well, we have to pay for our student to play high school sports in a lot of school districts across the state of Ohio. Yeah. Why should they be paid to play now? I don't know if that's a fair argument, but it's one I've heard a lot used by parents from that standpoint. Is there a balance in between? Is there a concern that if this thing does pass, and by the way, I think it will eventually come to the state of Ohio if it's – I think the next step's legality, legally. Someone's going to challenge this in court. I don't think there's any way that won't happen. We've already heard some rumbles of that as well, too. But at the same time, what are the danger areas for this for high school athletes? Because now, kids have enough on their plate as it is right now, just trying to go to school every day and do the things they have to do. Right. And now they have to be out, is it fair to say, selling themselves?
They don't have to.
No, they don't.
They don't.
But who's going to say no to this?
I'm not sure what you mean
by that. If you're a student athlete and you have an opportunity to make some money in high school, are you going to say no to it?
Well,
absolutely not.
To me, I would hope that there's a parental or guardian checks and balances there, as well as coaches, to a point, right? So again, that's where the rules got to come into play. Because it could be a slippery slope if the rules are not there. Obviously, I think when you talk about pay to play, that to me it's apples and oranges. It's a completely different subject. I understand their point.
Okay, how's it different?
Well, pay to play is, I mean, you're paying for your child to play a sport, right?
Right.
An athlete getting compensated is completely different than, is it not?
All right. Fair. I wanted to know your thoughts on it. Okay.
I mean, I'm certainly
no,
willing to.
It's not a debate. I was curious as to what your thoughts were on that.
I think I think there's a little bit of jealousy when people are saying that too.
Yeah,
well, that's
there's
not
no question
fair
about that, right?
That's not fair,
right?
Because somebody else is getting paid. Well, that's like saying, well, Bill Gates makes a whole lot of money, and I'm jealous. I'd say he earned it. To me,
right.
You get me going on what is deserving. If a player is deserving, then why should we limit them in this country? I mean, that's the way our country's been founded.
See, I think that's the one aspect of all this that I think has maybe gone ahead of where we are prepared to go with as far as how we follow sports and everything, because of the way it's changing in the last, 10 years even. I mean, we have teams now have decals on their uniforms from sponsors. You're going to see a lot of that coming up, and colleges already have the Nike swoosh, and that's been going on for years. I know that. But at the same time, it's just a part of it that when we were growing up, it was unheard of.
Well, right.
It was that those things were unheard of, and that's where we're at right now with all of this. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to come to grips with. And I think that's one of the reasons why, Greg, this thing was so soundly defeated by high school administrators, by high school principals in the state of Ohio, and it went down 538 to 254.
Right.
It wasn't even close.
Right.
In the no part of all of this, they're not ready for this yet. They're not ready because there are so many questions that still abound by this right now. And one of them as well, too, Greg, I think has to be, who's going to police all this? You mentioned parents and whatnot, but athletic directors, I mean, can they dive into this and put a hand in this? I mean, they're having a tough time getting umpires for games right now.
I understand. It will be logistically very demanding, let's just say that.
Right.
So I would agree with that. But I think eventually it's going to come. And I think, first of all, it's significant change. So I can see where administrators are like, no, we're not going there right now. I get that. Excuse me. We could turn this into a political discussion, and you could see. You could probably understand why it was voted like that.
Right.
I'm gonna, because it's pretty obvious to me, without pointing fingers one direction or the other. But I look at value in the marketplace. Is there value in the marketplace?
Okay.
And if you got a young athlete that somebody else thinks is marketable, that's value. Then why should we limit that person from earning whatever it is they can earn from somebody that thinks they're valuable in the marketplace? That's a win-win. That's a contract. That's a win-win. So that's my stance, and I think eventually we're going to get there.
Right. For me, it's I've thought a lot about it the last couple of days since the vote came out, and I see both ends of this. I'm not trying to waver on this, but I do see both sides of this. I see the positives to it, and I see the negatives to it, and it's an issue that I think a lot of people feel that same way about it. I've seen athletic administrators, Tim Street, who we're going to hear from here in a couple of moments from the OHSAA, kind of in the same boat. Yeah, I see good things for it, but I see negatives to it as well too. Right. And I think that's where this issue is. Right. It's not cut and dried. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's not, and we're not there yet. So obviously, some time is going to elapse, but I think eventually we're going to get there.
As we mentioned, Tim Street, the Director of Communications for the Ohio High School Athletic Association, well, he's been fielding a lot of these type of requests over the last couple of days. His answer, his responses, and how the OHSAA handled all this. And before we got the show going here at Yamo Media, I had a chance to spend some time with our good friend Tim Street via Zoom and find out his thoughts and the OHSAA's thoughts on NIL. Tim, I know it's been a whirlwind last couple of days, what with the decision coming out, the voting results coming out. Let's break this down maybe step by step as we get into this. Schools had an opportunity to vote on this, school districts. Each school got one vote. Maybe just take us through the process before we get into the results and how all that worked out. What was the process in all of this?
Sure. Yeah, every spring, Marty, our schools have the referendum voting process. And a lot of years it flies under the radar screen. A lot of years the general public and fans are not aware of the little things that schools are voting on. But we go through it every spring. It's a way that our schools can have any kind of edit or change to the Constitution or bylaws. So, anytime we're going to change the handbook or those kind of rules, it has to come through a vote of the membership. So in April, our staff and Executive Director Doug Ute goes out to our member schools and explains what they're voting on. We hold regional update meetings where we walk through what all these measures are the schools are going to vote on. The voting window this year was May 1st through May 16th. The principal at the high school casts the vote. It's done electronically. We intend and expect that to be a vote of the school. So the superintendent and the athletic director are involved in that, but the principal is actually the one that casts the vote. And the Monday evening, May 16th, we were tabulating all the results and crafting how we would display the results on Tuesday morning. So it was definitely a very busy and hectic Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday morning, we made the announcement. And so now we move forward from here.
Tim, when you broke down how all this works, how much are the principals of these districts encouraged to get input from coaches, athletic directors? You mentioned that it's a district-wide vote cast by one member, the principal of the schools. But from that standpoint, how much are they encouraged by the OHSAA to get that information? Is it something they take up on their own basis? I would imagine it's something that, I mean, they can't just make the call by themselves. They have to get that input. But how much are they encouraged to do that?
Sure. We really encourage them to get that input. In fact, I would think, the superintendent is the one in charge of the school and in charge of the school district. So if you're a principal, you really need to have a good talk with the superintendent, because the last thing you'd want to do is, as a principal, cast your vote. The superintendent comes down the hall and asks, how'd you vote, if you're not on the same page. So it's, the superintendents certainly have a lot to do with that. But the athletic directors certainly need to be consulted too. And in some schools, it's more than others. In some schools, the principal is heavily involved in athletics and, is going to talk with the superintendent, talk with the athletic director. In some school districts, the principal is not really involved in athletics a whole lot. And so they really need to lean on the input from the athletic director and the superintendent. But we strongly encourage those three groups of people to get together and talk. And it's an interesting process, though, because the opinion and the vote recommendation that the superintendent says oftentimes could be different than what the athletic director wants to do. That could certainly be different than what a coach wants to do. We see that a lot, where the coach's voice or the coach's wish is not in line with what the superintendent wants. But we have to lean on the superintendents and the principals. Those are the folks that run the school district, and we've been that way for 120 years. So we have to lean on those principals and superintendents, and this is another example of that.
The margin of defeat of this, 538 to 254, voted against it. We'll break down a little bit more into all of that aspect of it. Did that surprise you, the margin that this went down?
It did a little bit, Marty. I thought it would be a little closer than that. But, looking back on it now, at our regional update meetings where we went around to the state and talked about it, the vibe and the questions certainly were not overly positive. You could tell the sentiment was that a little frustration that NIL was in their lap now already at the high school level. We haven't even lived with it yet for a year at the college level. So we all could sense that tone, but I've said this a few times, how a school voted, or whether you voted yes or no for it, may not necessarily be in line with whether you liked it or not. I don't think there are many people who like NIL. I don't even like NIL at the college level. But certainly a lot of people are not going to like it at the high school level. But part of what we tried to explain to our schools is that part of why this proposal was in front of them now is because maybe it's going to be better than what could come down the tracks in a few months. That could be a court case. It could be something a lawmaker brings up. So what we try to do is explain that, this might be a way to stave off unintended things that could happen out of our control down the road. So I think our schools knew that. I think they understood that, but I think they were saying, hey, we can handle what happens down the road, but we don't want to be the ones right now that say, yes, let's do NIL at the high school level. They did not want to do that right now, for sure.
And again, our thanks to Tim Street, the Director of Communications for the Ohio High School Athletic Association. The entire interview with Tim will be available for you at yamomedia.com a little bit later on this evening. You can hear our entire conversation. It goes a little more in-depth into some of the reasons why the votes went the way that they did and how the OHSA is handling this. But I thought Tim closed it out very well, Greg, in the interview, the segment that we ran for you, when I asked him, was he surprised at the way the vote went? And he capped off his answer by saying, we thought it was best to get out ahead of this before it gets any further down the road, something you and I addressed before we brought him on about how, I mean, there's going to be legal challenges to this. There's already a lot of things already rolling downhill towards this.
I think the more I listen to his comments, and I feel like it's probably best now that it did get voted down, because it would have been a logistical nightmare, and I don't think anybody was ready to go down that road just yet. So this buys some time to kind of watch some, how the other states do it and learn some more about how it can work. So I think right now it's the best thing. But I think before too long, it's going to come back, and I think it'll get voted positively eventually.
All right, that's first down. We're going to move to second down here in just a moment. Remember, this is yamomedia.com. Marty Bannister, Greg Frey. Your questions, comments, we would love to have them. You can go to the Facebook page of yamomedia.com and fire your questions or comments about this issue or some of the other ones we're going to get into. We would love to hear from you. You can even go to our personal Facebook pages. Greg and I are both on Facebook. Our showrunner, Adam Dell's on Facebook as well, too. You can hit him up, too, with questions or comments. We can do all that here this evening, and we would love to hear from you as we roll out the first edition of Down and Distance. All right, first down's out of the way now. We've moved the ball ahead 10 yards. As Greg, we're going to second down, so we haven't moved to the full 10 yards yet.
Well, we need to be a little more up tempo. Like, you're a little slow in the transition. Okay. You got to get to the line of scrimmage. All right, okay. Can we just go up tempo?
All right, let's get to the line.
Get to it.
All right, we're to the line of scrimmage now.
Snap the damn ball.
Second down and
Jeez.
Second down and 5. See what I have to deal with.
Too much talking in the huddle.
Okay. College football now is where we're going to head on second down. And earlier today, the NCAA, or yesterday, in fact, the NCAA announced that conferences now no longer have to have divisions in order to have teams qualify to play for the college football championship or be one of the top 4 teams. You have to win your college football division, your college football championship game, your title game. And, of course, the Big Ten's had East versus West. Before that, it had legends, leaders. The SEC was the first to go to it, East-West. The ACC was Coastal, and I can't even think what the other one was, the ACC divisions. I mean, I don't think anybody knew what those divisions were, Coastal or whatever the other one was.
Did anybody watch the ACC? Saying.
The Pac-12 was North and South. That's gone away. They were the first ones to jump in and say, all right, great, we're not going to do that. Yeah. I think one of the reasons why some of the conferences are jumping on this, the Pac-12 comes to mind right away, is they have gone years where perhaps their 2 best teams did not get a chance to play for the conference championship, whereas you had to have the winner of the South, which may not have had the same record as the top 2 teams in the North, but they won the South, so they qualified, so on and so forth. So, and those conferences feel that hurt their chances of getting their top teams into the college football playoff. Let me throw it over to you, Coach Frey. Do you see the merit to this, the NCAA saying that you no longer have to have divisions in order to have your champion qualify for the college football playoff?
I think that throws a pretty big wrench in some of these leagues. I mean, what do you think the Big Ten's going to do?
I think that's a great question. I think that's a great question. Me, personally, I love divisions. I think it's a great way to keep things going. It adds rivalries to the game. I don't like the fact that when you have a league with 14 teams, there's no way you're playing everybody. At least when you're in a division, you're playing your other division opponents, and there's some merit to winning the division.
Yes.
I think there's something to that. Whereas now, if Ohio State and let's say – and this is a situation, I think, which is a definite possibility. If Ohio State and Michigan play week number 12, there's a distinct possibility they could turn right back around and play each other again in week 13 in the Big Ten championship game. I think that's a very real possibility if the Big Ten does away with divisions.
I don't see the Big Ten walking away from that right now.
Okay.
With the relationship with Indianapolis.
Well, it's not going to do anything to the conference title game. The title game is going to stay.
Okay.
It's just the top 2 teams. They'll have a convoluted system of percentages and things along those lines because that's why the conferences want their 2 best teams to play. The Big 12 has gone to that over the last few years.
I see what you mean, yeah.
So,
I got you now. It took me a little while,
It's all right.
I was getting ahead. I was thinking of the third down already.
You're already thinking ahead. Quarterbacks always a play
ahead.
You
got to be a play ahead, right? But I get it now. Because so again, if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, well, what are we talking about here? So imagine end of the regular season, Iowa's 5-3, right? Mm-hmm. And Ohio State's let's say 8-0 and Michigan 7-1, right? So Ohio State would play Michigan and Iowa's not playing,
right? If 5-3 wins the West, they're not in.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
So, or if there were a West division at 5-3, and if they were to win it with that, well, the division's gone. It's going to be And you could also have a situation, too, where you have two teams that don't play each other in the regular season.
Right.
Ohio State and, say, with the way the schedules are rotated, Ohio State 8-0, Iowa, for example, 8-0, we'll use them as the example here. Well, then, is that the best way to go about it then?
Well, okay, let me throw another one at you. Let's say Ohio State's 8-0, Michigan 7-1, or vice versa.
Okay.
Let's say Ohio State's 8-0, Michigan 7-1.
Okay.
And the other division, there's 2 losses. They're out, right? So Ohio State beats Michigan regular season. They turn around the next week. Michigan beats Ohio State, and now they both have 1 loss.
Now they both have 1 loss. Right.
And neither one gets in.
Which is a possibility. That's a great point to that. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a great point to all that. Personally, I'm in favor of divisions. Keep the division format. If you're good enough to win your division, then you're good enough to play for the college football championship. The divisions, I know, and these things are cyclical. I mean, you have to look at it that way. Sure, right now the Big Ten East is head and shoulders better than the Big Ten West at just about every stop.
Right.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment of where we're at right now. But at the same time, there have been years where the West in the future may be better than some of the teams in the East. So, again, I think it's a cyclical thing, but I think conferences need to stay with divisions. It justifies, to me, having teams qualify to play for the championship.
I would agree with that.
All right.
I think that's for once. Mark this date down in history, Adam. I agree with Marty.
He's got it. Adam's got it.
Check
has
the
it
box.
down. That's right. All right. So that's second down for you here on Down and Distance on this Thursday evening. We're glad to have you with us again. YamoMedia.com is the site. We would love to hear your questions or comments. What do you think about all this? Should the high schools in the state of Ohio go to NIL? Should student athletes be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness? What do you think about college football right now? Do you think the divisions to stay as they are? Is that the best way to determine teams to play for a conference championship? I think Greg and I are both in favor of yes. Keep the divisional alignment in college football, and that's the way you decide it's the best way to go about it. When we come back, we're going to step aside and take a timeout. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about, on third down, the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson is scheduled to take the Browns offense to the Bahamas in the next few days.
My name is Ryan Neelefritz, member of the Jefferson Township Fire Department, Engine 141, and I'm part of the Columbus Marauders football program. So the reason I wanted to become a firefighter was my father was a firefighter, so he's been in there for 30 years, so watching him grow up throughout the fire service and really got me excited about what I want to do with my career. Also, I grew up wanting to help people. The fact that I could do that with not knowing what the next day is going to bring me, it wasn't just a desk job, so that was really what brought me into the fire service. Favorite memories as a firefighter was actually getting a chance to work with my father. So just after watching him growing up, the fact that I was able to work at the same department with him before his career ended, it was one of the most proud moments of my life that I've ever been a part of, just be able to share that time with him and to ride the same truck as him. Well, I never got the chance to really play much growing up, so when I found this opportunity to, one, give back to my community with the program that we're with, the Columbus Marauders, and the opportunity to play football again, was something that I couldn't pass up. I've created lifelong friendships with guys that I've met just through this program. We have great connections throughout the entire country now because of the guys we play with from different parts of the country or different parts of the state. We can call those guys anytime and have that great camaraderie, and it's really what's the reason that's drawn me back to this organization. We're a non-profit organization, so whatever money we make towards uniforms or any sort of profit we have, we like to give back to a charitable donation. This year is Get Behind the Badge. What they are about is they give back to local police firemen, any full-time first responder, and give them any sort of assistance they need, whether it be emotional, financial, to the person, the family that they lost in the line of duty. Favorite memories are just the trips themselves. Before the game activities, we're all getting ready to go, and that's just kind of the look in the eye of the guy across from you. We're about to go into battle with each other. That's something you don't really see much every day, and the fact that I guess we formed lifelong friendships just because of that, and the fact that you get to play a sport that you love too. That you're not just because you're not a college athlete anymore doesn't mean we can't play anymore. I look forward to going to my job every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I regret. I wish I'd done something else. The fact that I'm able to do what I love and give back to a community or people that have helped me and to learn something new every single day. The saying is, if you know everything, your time's up in the fire service. So the fact that we're able to continue to learn and continue to grow is one of the reasons why I love being a firefighter.
You heard, and you'll hear more from Ryan coming up as part of the great event coming up on Saturday night, May the 21st, where the Columbus Marauders, which is a team composed of first responders, will take on Tri-State Shields, another group of first responders, in a benefit football game. It will take place at Central Crossing High School. The money that will be generated by the game will go to benefit the families of first responders. And I tell you, there are a lot of worthwhile causes out there these days. This is one of them, and I certainly encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to go out and watch the game and donate to help out the families of first responders. The game also will be broadcast live on Yamo Media on Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock start in the game at Central Crossing High School. So you have a couple of ways to check this out. The Behind the Badge benefit, $5 will get you in against Grove City Central Crossing High School. The benefits go to the families of first responders. And if you can't make it to the game, you can still probably donate as well, too. I'm sure there are many ways to do it. YamoMedia.com. You can go there, and I'm sure you can be pointed in the right direction if you want to help out the families of first responders as the Columbus Marauders take on Tri-State Shields. And again, that'll be Saturday afternoon. Be a little warm for a little football, but it's football weather. It's going to be 90. What the heck, right? Get out and enjoy some football and enjoy it for a great cause as well, too, which is the more important thing about all this. So looking forward to that, and best of luck to everyone taking part in that on Saturday. All right, we've gone through our first 2 downs of Down and Distance. We've talked about NIL in the state of Ohio, and we talked a little college football. We're going to get back into college football coming up in a moment. We're going to save the best for last. It's been a very busy day in college football. We're going to talk about that coming up. But here on third down, and I guess when the Cleveland Browns went out and acquired Deshaun Watson, it really turned a lot of heads in college or in the NFL because, number one, the contract, $250 million, I think.
Guaranteed.
234,
yeah, I think.
Guaranteed dollars.
Guaranteed.
And it's not as if Deshaun doesn't bring any baggage with him to Cleveland. There are all the accusations, just a bit, from his time in Houston with the accusations regarding the massages and all those other things that have gone on surrounding Deshaun Watson. Coming up here in the next few days, Watson is supposed to be taking the entire Browns offense. I think he's taking Baker Mayfield to the Bahamas for a team bonding session. From all indications and reports, he has secured a private practice field for the offense to get out and get together and do these type of things. I guess my question to all this is right now, with all that's circling around him right now, the NFL's investigating all the accusations right now as well, too. There's been some word on that already this week as well, too. Greg, let me turn it to you right now. Is this the best thing in the world for Deshaun Watson to be doing, taking his offense to the Bahamas?
First of all,
okay.
Let's clarify here. You're a Bengals fan, right?
Well, that has nothing to do with this.
And I'm a Bengals fan.
Right.
This is our podcast, and you want to talk about the Browns. I mean, you got to call a spade, right?
You have to be equal opportunity in things, Greg.
Well, it's great because we want to talk about this because this can be fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to get real interesting. And look, he's doing for where he's at. I think he's doing the right thing. He's trying to create some bonding, obviously, with the guys on a new team. And guess when you get that much money guaranteed, you can drop a couple hundred G's, right?
Do it in Berea. Why not go to the Outer Banks? Why not? Someplace that's, again, it's nothing against the Bahamas. I mean, it's a great place.
Maybe he got sponsored. I mean,
who knows? It's to me.
Probably because he knows the media's not going to chase him down there. Maybe that's a reason.
Please.
Maybe that's a reason.
How are they not? They're these days, someone will find out what's going on and be there and video it and all the other things that are going on. I guess if I'm the NFL, if I'm the Browns, I tell him, hey, just stay close to home right now. Let's just tone all this down. There's so many other things going on right now. The last thing we need is some sort of incident. I'm not saying one's going to happen or that anybody's going looking for one. But of all places to go right now, in the midst of all of this, why don't you stay home?
I mean, that is a very legitimate concern. You would hope that between him and his agent, they talked to the brass with the Browns and this was discussed. Like,
obviously, they signed off on it.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure he said all the right things, right? But you're right. You're potentially opening up another can of worms, which they don't need.
Right.
More importantly, though, my question is how interesting is it going to be at the OTAs here in a couple weeks?
Exactly.
In Berea. Just saying, the other guy, is he going to be there? I mean, is he They still got him. I mean,
Right.
that's a whole other interesting story.
$18 million tagged on that contract now for Baker Mayfield.
Nobody else is in line really to want him.
Right.
I think the league's telling you what they think.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I'm just of the opinion, if I'm the Browns, if I'm Deshaun Watson, let's think a little bit more about this instead of just it's a great idea. I think there's a lot of value to what he's trying to do. Just do it closer to home. Just do it in Berea. Just take him to Cedar Point on Saturday, then go back to Berea and practice it. They have a great training facility up there from all indications. Just do it that way. Just tone it down.
234 guaranteed.
Yeah.
You can go wherever you want. You can go to Tokyo if you want.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
You can go to Afghanistan if you want to. I mean,
I just think in this current situation right now, let's just tone it down. Let's keep everything under the radar.
I don't disagree.
And just do it that way.
But I'm sure behind the scenes there's somebody that is like, won't you come down here a little bit and
okay.
endorse our place.
Endorse our place, right? Yeah, I don't know.
We'll look the other way.
To me, I would just stay close to them. The other thing, before we move to the big issue today on fourth down, which is what's happening between Alabama and Texas A&M. Let me get your thoughts on this as well, too. With all the things that have happened in other situations similar to what Deshaun Watson is dealing with right now, we've had players, you can go back through the last 5-10 years, that have dealt with issues off the field regarding their personal behavior that has resulted in suspensions. Kareem Hunt comes to mind. His teammate on the Browns had to sit out a number of games. There have been other players that have had to deal with similar situations that have had to sit out suspensions while the NFL tries to lay down some law in this. Is there any way he is not suspended?
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And I think the Browns' powers to be probably have a pretty good idea what it's going to be. I would think the NFL is giving them an idea.
Right.
As you said, the Bengals and Browns play week 8, right? Yeah. So let's call it 6. I mean, Tom Brady when he doctored his balls, was it like 4 games?
Something like
right?
that. Yeah,
right?
Something like that.
So
yeah. I think
I'm going to say 6.
I just believe that it was less than coincidence that the Bengals and Browns were placed on Monday Night Football on week number 8 of the NFL season on a Monday night.
It was discussed.
I just think
it was totally discussed.
That's probably
there's
part of it.
There's a plan in place.
Right.
We'll all hear about it soon.
The NFL's a lot of things, but it's not dumb in those regards.
No.
They know how to maximize all of those things.
No.
I just probably wrong on all this, but that's the first thing that hit me when I saw week 8 on a Monday night.
I would like to
Cleveland.
see the Vegas odds on who's going to play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in the first 6 games. Who will that be?
What a mess. That's something else we could dive into on another edition of this program. All right, let's move to fourth down now. Greg's favorite down, where you get to kick the football away and get rid of the ball.
The punt is
what
the favorite play.
Greg's offense did that a lot when he played.
Football.
They always were punting
Who
a lot.
said that?
Yeah.
He was a good coach, though. I can't knock him too much.
Absolutely. If you're not aware of what's going on in the last 10, 15 hours, the Southeastern Conference football coaches held their annual spring meetings in Destin, Florida. And Nick Saban basically just eviscerated Jimbo Fisher and the Texas A&M program by claiming that he bought his entire class. Jimbo Fisher, the head coach at Texas A&M. Nick Saban is no fan of NIL. He has made that perfectly clear. And he went after Jimbo Fisher big time, calling out Texas A&M for, as he said, they basically bought their entire class. It's the wrong way to do things. I'm paraphrasing a lot of what Nick Saban said, but you get the impression that Saban, number one, doesn't really care what anybody thinks right now.
Right.
He's at that point in his college coaching career where he feels he can do that. Now, he has apologized in a roundabout way to Jimbo Fisher, who is refusing to take his calls and wants nothing to do with him, which is really great as well, too. And we're going to play some Jimbo Fisher for you here in a moment, his reaction to all this today. But, Greg, my first thought about this was when I saw all this back and forth between these two guys, did you ever see that in the Big Ten? I mean, was there ever a Big Ten coach that called out another coach? It's a different landscape down there. It really is. I can't think of any coach jumping on another coach that hard.
You'd have to think long and hard to come up with that. I'm sure Woody and Bo probably did it,
But not like that.
No.
Not like that.
I
don't think for a second Woody ever thought Bo was cheating. I mean, he knew him too well.
I don't know. He probably thought so.
Well, okay. I'm sorry, but the Big Ten, and I guess that's one of the differences in the two, I guess, landscapes between the two conferences.
Yeah.
The Big Ten has always had a congenial, collegiate, hey, we're all in this together type mindset.
True.
The
True.
SEC has not.
Yeah.
They don't care. It's just bitter. The rivalries are bitter. They get after each other each and every week.
I can only recall in the 1987 Cotton Bowl, I was part of that team. Earl Bruce said some things to us about Jackie Sherrill, who was the coach then at Texas A&M, that didn't reach the media, but he pretty much called him a criminal, pretty much. I mean, cheaters, whatever. I mean, he saw whether it was true or not, we believed it. So that was the sales pitch to us.
Right.
And he believed it. Trust me, he believed it. But he didn't go to the media to do that. This is different. But I think to me, what this really boils down to is there's a couple things. Number one is A&M beat them last year,
right?
And Saban does remember that and doesn't. I'm sure he has. There's no love lost there between those two. But the reality is the recruiting landscape has changed immensely. And example being, this past week I played in the Ohio State former players outing. Most of the coaches were there. Coach Day talked to everybody afterwards at lunch, and one of the comments he made was, he goes, look, guys, the way that we're recruiting now is a lot different than the way you guys were recruited. It's just different, and we have to adapt to that. We have to tap into these collectives because that's kind of the way it's going, and we got to go that direction, or we're going to lose ground recruiting. So it was an interesting standpoint that all these coaches have to embrace where they're at, where they're going quickly, and Saban obviously doesn't want to change because he's had a huge advantage in recruiting.
Right,
and that advantage is being taken away now because of these collectives, and it certainly appears that Texas A&M is kind of in the forefront of how they figured out how to do this. And, they're within the rules as far as we know.
As far as we know.
So, that's why you saw Jumbo bounce back today like, no, in a very, let's say, direct way in the media today. Vehemently letting everybody know that he didn't like what Mr. Saban said, Coach Saban said. So, anyway, the landscape has changed.
Yes.
And Saban doesn't like it because that takes away an advantage that he has built up over years. So I can't blame him from that standpoint, but he's crying in his soup a little bit.
He is.
No doubt.
He is. All right, Jimbo Fisher had a chance to respond to Nick Saban's comments earlier today, and let's say they are, well, in an understatement, interesting.
First of all, I'll say it's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. It's despicable that somebody can say things about somebody and an organization. More importantly, 17-year-old kids. You're taking shots at 17-year-old kids and their families. That they broke state laws. That they're all money. We bought every player on this group. We never bought anybody. No rules were broken. Nothing was done wrong. It was all in the way we do things, the ethics in which we do things. And these families, it's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen, and it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. And it's a shame that you got to sit here and defend 17-year-old kids and families and Texas A&M because we do things right. We're always going to do things right. But we're always going to be here.
First thing I will say about Jimbo Fisher's comments, wow. Just to go out and just basically just go after Saban, no holds barred, is impressive. But I will take issue with one thing he did say, that Nick Saban was directing this at the athletes. It wasn't directed at the athletes. He was taking shots at the athletes. He was going after Jimbo Fisher and the way he recruits. It had nothing to do with the athletes at all. I mean, if somebody – I don't know. I know you were recruited by a lot of different people, but if the money's tossed out there, that comes from the schools. It doesn't come from the players. I mean, there's some players' families who say, well, if you give me blankety blank, I'll come play for you. That does happen. Let's not be naive about all this. But at the same time, this was directed to Jimbo Fisher. It wasn't directed at student athletes.
Well, I mean, what he said was they bought all their players.
Right.
And that's a pretty that's a big accusation. But the reality was, Texas A&M used their collective, the monies that they have through their collectives, to offer to certain players. Now, that's where the gray area comes in as far as from a recruiting standpoint. How do you offer that? And I can't sit here and explain all that because I don't completely understand it. But to say that they bought their players is oof, that's a harsh one. And again, to me, it just screams that Saban doesn't completely understand this thing yet, and he's upset that they're not first in line because A&M's first in line because they got it figured out. And so yeah, he clearly he took it personal, right? And he wanted to defend his players. So I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. And clearly he knows a lot about Nick Saban, so he decided he's going to fire back. And I love it. I wish there was more of that. I think that's great.
Really?
I do.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why? What does that – I mean, we try these days to keep fans from going after umpires and things. Then you got two head coaches bickering back and forth.
Let them go out.
What's the advantage to it?
I'm not sure there's an advantage, but there's a point when being politically correct all the time is pretty darn boring. So from a standpoint of liking the heat, I'm liking the heat right now.
Okay, so you would like it if
there's no love lost between these two, so let them go after each other.
Okay, so you would like it if Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day got into
I think it'd be great.
I mean, dropping 100 on him. I mean, that's the limit the Big Ten goes.
Be great.
That's the limit the Big Ten coaches
because those two would go at it.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any question. But that's my point though. Is that's as far as Big Ten coaches will go. Is we're gonna throw 100 on him. Okay, that's great. Well, that's fine. But as we mentioned earlier, I can't recall a Big Ten coach who said Hayden Fry is buying his players and said it publicly for everybody to deal with. I know times are different these days, but it's still at the same point. It just doesn't happen at this level.
Well, and again, you got there's a lot of history there too. These guys coached together for a couple of years. Right. And I promise you, on every staff, there's a few coaches that are type A's on the same staff that do not like each other. Right. It happens. I've witnessed it. I've seen it. A lot of that's happened. I can mention, Mike Vrabel and Urban Meyer.
Right, yeah, right top of the list. Yeah,
they didn't get along real well, right? So, yeah, it's there's some egos involved right there, and there's some bad blood there for sure.
And all this sets up for October the 8th when Texas A&M visits Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide. If there was ever a game that had rocketed up the college football must-see TV list for this coming season, well, that one's it. With all that's happened today, it's just that's and the fact that A&M has to come to Alabama and play.
I'd say Alabama may score 70 that night. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that'll be one of those where they
might score 70.
They're not taking the throttle. Yeah. That's where the Woody Hayes. How come you went for 2 in that situation? Because they couldn't go for 3. There's going to be a lot of that going on.
I'm putting 70 up. All that. I'm going over. I'm just saying right now. The over could be 65. I'm going over.
Okay, let's wrap it up with this on this situation. Where does this go? I mean, does the SEC come down and do anything? As we mentioned, these things have gone on in that league for years where coaches have sniped at one another publicly. This has kind of taken it to a different level. But does the SEC do anything with this? Do they just let everybody calm down, go back to what you were doing? There'll be some sort of reprimand thrown out to both coaches, which, as we all know, means absolutely zilch.
Right.
But will anything happen?
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I mean, what did he really say? They bought all their players. I mean, I think the fact that he and there was more to it. I think that's the one quote that he said. I think it's been taken a little bit out of context, and I think he backed off a little bit today. But I think Jimbo took it mostly personal. Mm-hmm. So you might see a hand slap by the league, but they're going to let it go, I think.
I thought it was funny where Jimbo Fisher said, at Texas A&M, we do things the right way. Well, they've been on probation before. Let's be honest. They haven't always done things the right way at A&M. They may be doing them now under him, but as we all know, that's just not the case. And I'm not singling out A&M as the only school that's ever done anything wrong. I mean, we all know that's filtered down up and down the list in college athletics that people have done things wrong. But to jump right out and say, we haven't done anything wrong, we've never done anything wrong at A&M. Well, again, that's a little bit of a stretch as well.
Well, no, but I think, again, they understand NIL better than most would be my argument.
And credit to them. Credit to them for jumping on it right away.
They're ahead of everybody else in that regard. Yeah. So, and the rules are fairly vague there. So, look, they're like, hey, we didn't break any rules because there aren't many. It's kind of what's really going on. So, again, you tip your hat. They figured it out first.
Absolutely. All right. Hope you enjoyed what you saw tonight. This is Down a Distance. He's former Ohio State quarterback Greg Frey, Marty Bannister. Adam Dell's our showrunner here on Yamo Media. The program will be in its entirety as well, too. You'll be able to go back and watch it again, and that will be with you on our website, yamomedia.com, and also on our YouTube page as well, too. And you can also access it through Facebook as well, too. We certainly thank you for joining us tonight for the last 45 minutes or so. We dove into a lot of topics: first down, second down, third down, fourth down. We will do it again again, coming up for you very, very soon. Watch Yamo Media and all the social media sites for word about our next edition of Down and Distance here this evening on YamoMedia.com. For the quarterback, Greg Frey, Marty Bannister, thank you for being with us here on Yamo Media.